Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. UFC 268 is this Saturday. It's the UFC's return to Madison Square Garden in New York, and the card is absolutely stacked. I cannot wait. And in the featured fight on the main card, we have Justin Gaethje versus Michael Chandler, and this is going to be my full breakdown and prediction for this amazing lightweight fight. So I'll be doing a bunch of other UFC 268 prediction videos. Make sure to keep an eye out on the channel for those. They'll be coming soon. But let's talk about Justin Gaethje versus Michael Chandler. You look at the tail of the tape, Justin Gaethje is currently ranked number 2, while Chandler's currently ranked number 4 in the UFC official rankings. Gaethje's 32, Chandler's 35. Gaethje is 5'11, Chandler is 5'8. Gaethje has a 70-inch reach, while Chandler has a 71.5-inch reach. So Gaethje has a height and youth advantage. Chandler has a very slight reach advantage. I don't think that will be a factor in the fight. So let's talk about Justin Gaethje first. And there was a startling fact that I realized when looking over the resume of Justin Gaethje, and it's just really a testament to how exciting Justin Gaethje fights are. They are just can't miss. And I think this fight against Michael Chandler will be amazing no matter who wins or loses. And Justin Gaethje, the fact I'm talking about, is Justin Gaethje has 25 pro fights, and he's only ever been to decision twice. Twice in 25 pro fights. That's insane. And the last time that Justin Gaethje went to decision was in November 2014 against Melvin Gillard. So Justin Gaethje has not gone to decision in 7 years. That is insane, and I cannot wait for this fight. Let's look at his most recent fight. Justin Gaethje fought Khabib Nurmagomedov, and he was dominated. He lost. He was submitted in the second round. Well, technically, he was choked unconscious. He lost the fight, but it's Khabib Nurmagomedov. Khabib is one of the greatest fighters of all time. Definitely, probably the greatest lightweight of all time. And, it's not so bad to have a loss to Khabib Nurmagomedov. So let's look at Gaethje a little bit before he came into the UFC. I watched him in World Series of Fighting. I'll never forget the fights with Luis Palomino. He was World Series of Fighting lightweight champion. And I was worried, what if he never gets signed to the UFC? And he eventually got signed to the UFC, and he came in and had that absolute war with Michael Johnson. I will never forget that fight. I mean, he was hurt badly, and he comes back to finish Michael Johnson. Amazing performance. After that, this is where Justin Gaethje had some troubles in the UFC. And he fought Eddie Alvarez. He was stopped in the third round, and he fought Dustin Poirier after that fight, and he was stopped in the third round. Both fights, or actually the fourth round, and in both fights, he was TKO'd. And, I feel like this was a turning point in Justin Gaethje's career because he came into the UFC saying, I can't wait for someone to knock me unconscious. And, this finally happened, kind of. I mean, he wasn't out cold, he was TKO'd, but he was brutalized and he was finished. And this was the first time, these two fights were his first losses in his career, as his pro MMA career. So I think really at this point in time, Justin Gaethje kind of started to take a turn and get a little bit better as far as his fight IQ, be a little bit safer. He still had that crazy exciting style, but his risk management was much better. He wasn't leaving his chin out there. He wasn't getting wild and throwing 50 punch combinations just hoping to finish a guy and put the that undeniable pressure. And he just started to just fight just a little bit smarter. Nothing crazy. It's not like his fighting style drastically changed, but he wasn't putting himself out there to be finished as much as he did. Those Eddie Alvarez fights, that Eddie Alvarez fight and that Dustin Poirier fight was insane. And in both those fights, and don't get me wrong, at this point in time, Eddie Alvarez and Dustin Poirier even still some of the best lightweights in the world and some of the best lightweights in the UFC. And Gaethje was in both of those fights. I mean, he could have easily won both of those fights. I know he didn't. He came out with the loss, but he was very competitive. He hurt Poirier's leg badly. He was landing great combinations on Eddie Alvarez. But I think these losses were necessary to get Justin Gaethje where he is today. After those two losses, he knocks out James Vick in the first round. Great performance, but again, James Vick has a glass jaw. What do you really say about that? Then he goes on to fight Edson Barboza, and I thought this was an amazing win. He KOs Edson Barboza in the first round, traded a little bit of leg kicks, and I'll never forget, before this fight, he was saying, I welcome trading leg kicks with Edson Barboza. Who would ever say that? Gaethje's an absolute maniac. Then he goes on to outclass Donald Cerrone, TKOs him. Great performance. But again, it's Donald Cerrone. His next fight is, I think, the most impressive on all his resume. And that was when he stepped in on short notice to fight Tony Ferguson for the interim lightweight title. And I picked Justin Gaethje in this fight. Not a lot of people were picking him. And he went into this fight and he outclassed Tony Ferguson. And I know people are dancing on Tony Ferguson's grave nowadays. Tony Ferguson's on a 3-fight losing streak, but this was the point where Tony Ferguson hadn't lost a fight in years. And Gaethje goes in there on short notice. Conor McGregor turned this fight down. Conor McGregor didn't want to step in on short notice against Tony Ferguson. Justin Gaethje steps in and just dominates him. I know he was hurt at the end of the first round with an uppercut. He weathers that adversity, comes back, and just destroys Tony Ferguson for 5 rounds and stops him via TKO in the 5th round. I mean, you know how hard it is to stop Tony Ferguson? Ask Charles Oliveira, ask Beneil Dariush. Tony Ferguson won't even tap the submissions when it's cranked. I mean, the armbar fully extended in the Charles Oliveira fight. I think it was a knee bar in the Beneil Dariush. Tony Ferguson, there's no quit in him. And he was just bludgeoned by Justin Gaethje's hands in that fight. And Justin Gaethje wins the interim lightweight title. He goes on to fight Khabib Nurmagomedov to unify the belts. He loses, he's dominated, he's choked out. We already talked about that a little bit. But again, that's Khabib Nurmagomedov, one of the greatest lightweights of all time, if not the greatest lightweight of all time. And now he's taken some time off. He's been out for over a year. And now he's going to return against Michael Chandler. Now, Michael Chandler is kind of a hard fighter to really get a feel for because he's getting a little bit older. He's 35 years old. He probably only has a few more years. He talks about it, openly, says, he's not going to be around for a long time. But he was a guy that I never really thought we might see in the UFC because not only was he Bellator's lightweight champion, he was the face of Bellator for many years, and he was fighting a lot of good guys. I don't feel like he got enough credit for it. He beat Eddie Alvarez back in the day. And, he had a lot of great opponents. Will Brooks, he has 2 losses to Will Brooks, who eventually came to the UFC and was a bust. But Will Brooks, I don't know what happened to him in the UFC, but Will Brooks was a quality fighter. He has that loss to Brent Primus, but, that was when Primus hit that perennial nerve, hurt him. He had the drop foot, but, he went on to avenge that loss. And recently, he's just looked amazing. He left Bellator after a beautiful KO of Benson Henderson. And I know Benson Henderson isn't necessarily in his prime, but Benson Henderson's still a quality fighter. And for him to finish Benson Henderson in the way he did is impressive in my book. And the UFC finally signs him, brings him over. He fights out his Bellator contract. UFC finally signs him and books him a fight with Dan Hooker, one of the best lightweights in the world, definitely top 10 at this time. I don't remember what Dan Hooker was ranked. And he just marches Dan Hooker down. Dan Hooker's, circling around the cage, looking to counter and outstrike Michael Chandler from the range. And I really thought that Dan Hooker would win this fight. I picked Dan Hooker in this fight. Chandler lands a nasty right hand after I think it was a jab to the body, leaping right hand. Chandler is so explosive, and he sleeps Dan Hooker. I think he dropped him technically, and it was really actually a TKO, but you get my point. It was a beautiful finish of Dan Hooker for Michael Chandler. Then we had the Khabib Nurmagomedov retirement. The lightweight picture was kind of weird because Gaethje had just lost, and McGregor had just lost to Poirier, and Poirier was fighting McGregor. So because of those weird circumstances, we got Michael Chandler versus Charles Oliveira, and this was one of the best 2-round fights I've ever seen. And really, it was only a round and then maybe like 30 seconds. And Michael Chandler was so close to being the undisputed UFC lightweight champion. He almost finished Charles Oliveira in that first round. Hurt him badly. He was ground and pounding him. And the referee was looking at it real close, but Charles Oliveira was moving around. Charles Oliveira survives till the second round and goes out there and starches Chandler in the first 30 seconds. Hurts him, I think it was a straight right. Then just chases him down with left hooks and just puts him down and finishes him with ground and pound. Amazing performance by both guys. I didn't think either guy lost very much stock in that fight, but Chandler was just so close to being a UFC champion, which would have been incredible for him. Coming over from Bellator, everyone doubted him for years, and then to get his hands on undisputed gold would have been insane. And now he's going to fight Justin Gaethje. And I think this is really a number 1 contender fight for Justin Gaethje. If Justin Gaethje starches Michael Chandler or wins pretty impressively, I think Justin Gaethje's probably fighting the winner of Charles Oliveira versus Dustin Poirier. It's hard to say for sure, but I think he probably is. Michael Chandler, I still think he needs a couple more wins. He already got a title shot off of 1 win. I don't think it's going to work out for him like that again. I don't think he's going to get 1 win over Justin Gaethje and get another title shot. I think he needs to, string 2 or 3 wins together before he gets another title shot. So my breakdown of this fight and my official prediction, I am going Justin Gaethje first round TKO, and I just think Justin Gaethje's cleaner on the feet. I think he has more technical striking. I think his hands are just so good. I mean, his dismantling of Tony Ferguson, I can never forget. And I know Chandler Ferguson aren't the same people, but Chandler's super explosive and fast. I think Chandler can definitely win this fight. I'm not super confident in this pick, but I still feel like Gaethje's going to win this fight. Chandler has power in both his hands. He has amazing athleticism and just explosiveness. He can land out of nowhere, but he's just got wild winging punches while Gaethje's just super tight, has nice like check hooks and straights and jabs, and I just really think he's the better overall striker. And then also Chandler doesn't use all his tools. He's not a guy that is ripping kicks to the body. He's not a guy that's ripping leg kicks. He's really just a wrestle boxer. People say that all the time, wrestle boxer. And that's really what Chandler is. He looks to defend takedowns for guys who are going to try to take him down, and he looks to strike and knock his opponent out. And that's not going to work in this fight. That's just not. Justin Gaethje's just too technical of a striker, has too much power, Justin Gaethje uses a variety of attacks in all his fights. I mean, he will be chopping Michael Chandler's leg badly. Chandler's already been susceptible to leg kicks in the past. I know he got, that nerve hit in that one fight against Brent Primus, but Gaethje has probably the best leg kicks in all of MMA, in my opinion. I mean, he will chop those legs and he will look for openings. Gaethje's not going to leave his chin out there. He's not as reckless as he once was. He's just not. And I just don't think Chandler's going to find that moment. I think he's going to be swinging wild winging punches. I think he's going to be pressing forward. And I think Gaethje's going to be picking the shots, kicking the legs, kicking the body, and eventually land a combination with the hands, put Chandler down. And Chandler's super tough. It's not like he gets starched out cold all the time or anything like that. But he has been TKO'd in the past, and I think Gaethje's going to drop him, finish him with some ground and pound, and the referee's going to pull Gaethje off, and Gaethje's going to win in the first round. And the reason I think it's going to happen in the first round is just because Chandler's such a fast starter. He's going to press forward. He's going to look for those wild, wingy haymakers, but they're just not going to land, and Gaethje's going to counter him, and Gaethje's going to be beating up that leg and limiting that mobility, and he's going to put him to sleep in that first round. And, if I really was in Chandler's corner, I mean, I'd be looking at that Khabib Nurmagomedov fight, and I'd be telling Chandler to wrestle. Maybe he will. Maybe we'll see what Chandler's fight IQ is like, but that just historically has not been Chandler's path to victory. He's not a guy who's taking guys down, holding them down, beating them up on the ground, and winning decisions. He's looking to land the power in his hands and put you to sleep. And maybe there's a path to victory there. I mean, Chandler, I think definitely has the wrestling advantage. I think he has the jiu-jitsu advantage. I mean, the way he hung in there with Charles Oliveira on his back in that fight against Charles Oliveira was insane. He did very well avoiding the submission. He's shown great groundwork in the past. And, Justin Gaethje, I cannot trust his jiu-jitsu. I know Khabib Nurmagomedov's one of the best in the world, but the way Justin Gaethje got treated by him, it looked like he never trained a day of jiu-jitsu in his entire life. So I really think Chandler has the wrestling advantage. I think he has the jiu-jitsu advantage, but I don't think he's going to use it. He's looking to go in there and strike with Justin Gaethje, and it's not going to turn out well for him. Gaethje's going to beat him up in all facets of this fight, just going to be beating up the legs, beating up the body, eventually land with the hands, put him down and TKO him. But I cannot wait for this fight. There is no way that this fight is going to be boring. Win or lose for either guy, they are both coming to fight, and they are historically in amazing fights, both guys throughout their careers. I just think Chandler, as sad as it is to say, it's a little bit late. I don't think he's ever going to make his way back to a UFC title. You have too many guys coming up. You have Charles Oliveira as champion, who's already beat Chandler. You have Islam Makhachev making his way up. You have Beneil Dariush making his way up. You have Justin Gaethje trying to make a resurgence back to the title. Chandler's 35, going on 36. I just don't see how he makes his way back to a title, especially if he gets TKO'd or KO'd by Justin Gaethje at UFC 268. But that's my prediction for the fight. I can't wait for Justin Gaethje versus Michael Chandler. Let me know what you guys are predicting in the comments. I'm always curious of that. Don't forget to like the video. I appreciate it very much. It helps the channel grow. And thank you so much for watching.